Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. If you're watching the live stream, I realized that the lights have been going out in my studio, so you might see a brighter picture today because I finally got around to changing the light bulb. Not a lazy person anymore. And I only realized, Matt, because the second light bulb burnt out. And once I put in the recommended wattage, it's super bright up here now, so I'll probably be sweating by the end of the show, but that's the only change. Next, first thing, actually, we got high tempo, Matt. So what do you got for us to kick off the show?
How are you going to kick off the fact you're letting lights burn out?
Well, I'm staring almost into it, and I'm not used to it. I'm used to almost having like a dungeon feel to the show. So we'll see if it looks any different. I haven't adjusted for color yet. So give us another week now that we have working light bulbs.
Oh. All right. Well, for this week, I just wanted to give a shout out to the seniors that graduated here within the last couple weeks. Excited that they're moving on to the next chapter of their lives, and now with tomorrow starts the next round, the 2019-2020 kids. So we're kicking off weightlifting tomorrow and getting back into our summer groove, starting to get back into the swing of football. So it's good to be back. And excited to get back to work.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even realize it was high school graduation. So congrats to those guys getting it over with. And it's a long summer. Get ready for your spring classes if you're starting college for the first time. And I know that they're starting to report new freshman football players have been reporting to camp within the next week or two. So good luck to them going on as well. I got a big one, kind of my high tempo, but I broke it out. The Pittsburgh Pirates and their sinking ship. I teased it last show. I made it up to Pittsburgh for a game this past weekend. And it's been a while since I've been there because there have been some rules and improvements that they don't really talk about, or at least that I haven't seen. The pitch count isn't just a rumor. They have the clock up there, or whatever. I guess not the pitch count. It's like the delay of game clock. So they have a clock that it was about 15 seconds or so from the batter to get, I guess, in the batter's box. But I will say that clock did not matter. The Pirates game was well over, I mean, regulation or the first 9 innings, it went into overtime, extra innings. So I don't know the exact length of the game, but it was well over 3.5, possibly 4 hours, just the first 9 innings. And that clock doesn't do anything. If the batter walks up into the box and then they stop the clock, but he immediately steps out or calls timeout, what is the point of the clock? Because I saw countless times where a batter walked up, got right back out of the box, didn't speed up the game at all. Then they also had another clock in between innings. I think it was 2 minutes for the other team to get out there. But I felt like there were some delays with that clock because I would look and say, 2 minutes. I would watch a guy come out. They did like a pierogi race. Then they did like a t-shirt launch. And I thought, has to be the end of that minute countdown clock. They just launched like 12 t-shirts into the crowd. And I turned to see the clocks at like 1:47. So I'm like, holy cow, only 13 seconds have ran off the clock. So I don't even think that they started that immediately. So Major League Baseball, get that together. Because I don't want to go to a game and have it take forever. I was excited when I saw that the improvements were there. And then they didn't even work. Matt, have you been to a game or noticed those even on TV or anything?
No, haven't noticed it. It just, the game itself is just, it's slow. And I know the baseball purists are like, well, that's just the way the game is. It's a thinking game. But to the casual fan, I definitely think the length of the game really takes a toll on the casual fan.
Well, I'll say this. There's another thing I have to complain about from being at the game itself. But when you're there, it's a different thing. Like if I'm catching t-shirts, I didn't even realize. I thought the full 2 minutes were going to be up. But I still think that the television networks play a hand because I saw a ton of AT&T network Sportsnet ads all over the banners, how this game was being broadcast on there. And I understand it's not as blatant as going to Michigan Stadium and seeing the TV guy right out in the middle of the field with his hand up. And so okay, once this commercial's over, this guy's going to run off the field and play is going to resume. But I have a feeling that that countdown clock might not have started until they hit a commercial or two. Like, I don't think it was tied to the stadium hijinks. I don't think it was tied to like a pierogi race. Like, okay, let's get this race over. It has to be tied to television. But from a fan perspective, PNC is great. Once again, I liked how they had their concessions and stuff set up. So if you haven't been to a Pirates game or any Major League Baseball game, definitely hit those up. It is a good family time. Didn't have trouble parking or anything like that. And the game itself was good. Pirates choked it away. They had a lead. And of course, it's like the ninth inning. So you're like, okay, time to go. Well, let's get our stuff, get ready. You had a Chris Archer bobblehead doll that they gave to you. And right when you think the game is over, Pirates blow it. They give up the home run to tie it. And I thought, oh man, there's no way the Pirates are going to score in the bottom of the ninth. This is going to extras, and it did. And I don't even know. I know the Brewers won, and it was quite a long game. It took another hour or two to finish the game, and it just felt exactly like the Pirates have in years past. You're so close. You could win a game against a team in your division, a rival, and you have the game put away. All you need is a bullpen to come in, and the bullpen can't get it done. So all the people that complain about the Pirates roster and the owners not paying for players, if they would invest just in the pitching staff, I would feel more comfortable. Because there's times where some teams that have great bullpens, and you know, okay, hey, the bats are hitting today. We can win. The bats are hitting today. It didn't matter. Pirates had like 7 guys left on base. They had 10 runs, I think, in the first 9 innings, and it still wasn't enough. At some point, pitching has to come in. It doesn't matter how many runs you can score if you have an awesome lineup, which the Pirates don't even have that. So they're sinking again below 500 already. It's June. You can fly that Jolly Roger at half-mast. The season's over. There's no way, after watching that team battle back and just seeing that they don't have enough in, it's not even really coaching, but it's sad. And I mean, a lot of fans there are still homers. There are times where you knew, like, why change a pitcher here, or why didn't you change it earlier? And fans are just sitting there blindly following. There was a play where I saw some fans get into it afterwards because the Pirates tried to steal. They reviewed it. He was clearly out. It looked like he was out. Of course, the in-game TV guy is awful. They cropped the footage so you can't even see the bag. So we don't even know if he was tagged before he touched the bag or not. We couldn't tell from the stadium, and I didn't care enough to go rewatch it before this show. But, of course, everyone's like, oh, he's out, he's out. And there's a diehard Pirates fan stands up. He was safe! And just starts booing and going completely ballistic. And I thought, well, this is a rare case to see. But I looked around, Matt. There's a ton of people doing that. It was outrageous. So, crazy that some people still think that the Pirates, talking to some fans out there, they think that they have a chance to make the playoffs. And I'll give you a chance, Matt. Do you think they have a chance? Or do you think that these homers are keeping the Pirates at this mediocre state?
I think it's twofold. I mean, the consensus always seems to be if you hit the Pirates in the wallet, they're going to make the changes, and they're getting enough from their TV deals, and they're getting enough people to show up just barely to continue to make the profit that I don't think it's gonna drive them to make changes. So I do think that plays a factor into it, but actually I think that is the factor, to be honest. The fact that they're making enough money that they're turning a profit and they can just say, well, we're good, we're content, kind of sponging off the success of the Steelers and Penguins, that you're going to draw enough people because of the ballpark and the experience that it really doesn't matter. You can rely on being in a division where Cincinnati travels relatively well, St. Louis travels well, and the Cubs are playing well, so that you're going to get the visiting teams coming to the ballpark to fill the stands for you.
And there were a good bit of Brewers fans there, so I agree with that to an extent. You can just leech off your rivals knowing that there are people that are going to show up for those games, especially on a weekend game when it's relatively cheap to travel. You get to see a new city. So I don't know. It's a big issue, and I don't think it's ever going to be solved, at least with current ownership. But we will see. I did have, well, actually, there's two other things I forgot to mention. They have a visit to the mound counter, and Matt, they give you 6 visits to the mound. Why? That's the most ridiculous amount. Because in most times a game, you see 3 or 4 pitching changes. You're never going to hit that. This game went into extras, and I think by the end of the ninth, I looked up, Pirates still had 3 visits to the mound left, and the Brewers had 2. They weren't even using them. And they were still having all these issues, because I guess it doesn't count if you make a change. But at that point, why not make it a little bit more strategic and help the game by making it 2 or 3? Why give them 6 visits to the mound? There's no scenario where your catcher or your coach has to come talk to the pitcher. Talk to him between the inning. Give me a break. And then the last thing I saw was, and maybe this is just a Pirate thing, but this goes for all sports, and it's going to be my segue into our next thing here, but there was a guy that had a baby. I was right on first base line, Matt. He had a baby in the first row, right past the dugout, clearly in foul ball territory. In the very front row. Guess what he did the entire game? Played on his phone. He had his baby in one hand like this while he sat there on his phone. You know how many foul balls went near him? A ton. And there's a girl sitting right in front of them with the mitt. I'm sure the Pirates saw the baby and were like, holy crap, we got to get the ball girl out here. But of course, I don't know if she had ever played sports, but every time a ball came to her, she was diving out of the way. And I thought, what was even the point of having her there? But I don't know if the guy
just to put her out of the way to.
Matt, I have no idea. I don't know what the point of having her there if she couldn't field a ball. And then they had the guy, I think he was by himself, to be honest, which, I mean, if you're going to take your kid to the game, but it's a baby. It was a bona fide baby. They had he had a bottle that he pulled out of this little knapsack, and he fed her for a couple innings with a bottle because she was crying. And I know that baby cry. It's not pleasant. Why did the Pirates allow him to bring...
It's not that you overheard that baby crying that audibly loud from where you were sitting.
Yeah, well, I was a couple rows behind him, or so I guess I was at the top of the section. He was down at the very front. So you could definitely hear, though. And my thing was, for safety reasons, that's the kind of guy that would get hit in the face with the ball or to make him drop his child, or even worse, the kid gets hit with the ball, and he would be immediately suing Major League Baseball. And it's why? And I think I have a solution. And this is my last part. I know I went long on this, but I was teasing the show down in Pittsburgh to some random people, so I wanted them to know. I was giving my thoughts on the Pirates game, and that's what's happening. But the last thing, make him pay for 2 tickets. Because I was talking to a guy there that was complaining about the same exact thing. Why is that baby even here? That guy's been on his phone the entire time, and it was almost like a sideshow. The foul ball was hit, and my eyes immediately went to him to see if he was paying attention, if it was coming our way. I wasn't even worried about it curving to me. I was like, holy crap, let's see if there's going to be some action down here. Because I was assuming he would jump and drop the baby or something. But if you make him pay for 2 tickets, there's no way he's buying a seat for that baby. And I know that Michigan does it for football games. I would assume they do it for all of their sports. So, and I think it's an actual Big Ten rule that every person in the stadium, baby, whatever, has to have their own seat, so you have to buy a ticket for them. And I think that's what the baseball should do. Because my thought was, there's no empty seat beside him. He's carrying the baby. I think he was by himself, so they had to have let him in with the baby. Maybe they're doing a free under 2. But I honestly think they need to change that just to protect themselves. Any thoughts on that, Matt, before we change subjects?
Well, I think you're identifying a problem. Major League Baseball should just take it a step further and increase the range of the foul ball safety nets. Why wait for some moron that's not paying attention to get hit before you address it? College baseball does that, where they widen out the foul ball fences so that it doesn't change or alter the view of the game. It keeps the fans safe, and to me, it's a no-brainer. If you have something there that's going to keep people safe, why not use it?
Matt, I think you're missing my point here. It's very inconvenient for me to hear babies crying while I'm trying to enjoy the baseball game. I'm trying to cut the babies out, not to make fans safer. You know how many guys I saw in that same section having baseball mitts on, hoping that they got a foul ball hit to them? Yeah, that's an injustice if you put a fence up so that they can't catch foul balls. Don't you think?
I watch enough non-athletes that how many of those guys could actually catch a ball if it was hit to them?
Hold on, I got the stats. I was trying to count ones that came to our section. Five foul balls. Only one of them were caught by a dude without wearing a glove. The other 4 guys all had gloves on. 0 for 4.
There you go. You just identified. So you got a bunch of non-athletes that are bringing their gloves from Little League, thinking that that it'll be all right to catch a ball. They haven't done anything except playing on their phones since they were in Little League. But they got their glove there so they could take their picture. I'm at the game with my mitt. Protect them, because they're going to hurt themselves because they're dumbasses. So do the right thing and just look out for them. Just like now you have to have labels that your coffee's hot because some moron didn't realize and dump hot coffee all over their crotch. You got to look after the dumbest link in the chain.
Man, you got to keep a positive spin here. 1 for 5. That's what, 200. If Pirates had a guy hitting 200 at the plate, that'd extend him for 5 years.
No, they'd trade him for a bag of buns for hot dog night.
Very true. Very true. Let's. I know we haven't talked baseball for a while. We got some other baseball stuff coming up, but let's get into the mailbag. Before we get into the last baseball topic, the NCAA baseball tournament, Matt, I had a complaint by, I think, a Miami fan saying that you talk about Florida State too much. What is your rebuttal on that?
I don't have a rebuttal. I will try to refrain from talking about the Noles so much. When Miami produces a indoor practice facility that's the appropriate length of space and not 20 yards.
Hey, we did have another positive in your end. One guy said that he's a Maryland fan, and every time you talk about Florida State recruits, he at least learns a little bit about the players Miami is going to eventually sign. Or Maryland, I mean, shit. But no, I will say that hopefully that beef is just at Matt, not at me. I know I talk a lot about Michigan, but I try to be even with the Big Ten. So I brought in last week the NCAA baseball tournament, which we're going to transition into now. And Michigan advanced as a 3 seed, along with a fellow 3 seed Florida State. I think down here, North Carolina State lost to Campbell, and then eventually got eliminated in that bracket that went to East Carolina. So that's the team that moved on down here. I think there were a couple. Was there one other? I think no 4 seeds advanced. I want to say there were 3 seeds, with the other one being Duke. Michigan, Florida State, and Duke, I believe, were the three seeds. And then everyone else was 1 seed, except for there was one team that was a 2 seed. But there weren't really any upsets in this year's tournament. Michigan was the only Big Ten team to advance. So Ohio State they lost. I saw that they were in it. And realistically, let's be honest, I didn't see any other Big Ten teams there. When you have the big 2 dogs, I noticed that Ohio State was in there, and I saw them lost, so it's a good week. But Matt, any thoughts on Florida State in it?
Well, I think it came back to what we talked about last week. When you look at how they had the potential, but they just weren't putting it together during the regular season, and then you look at all of a sudden the bats just came alive. And they had the feel-good story of, I can't think of his name now off the top of my head, but he was a player that was playing on the club team and ended up getting picked up and started playing. He was the guy that was crushing all the home runs in their pounding of Georgia. And I thought it was great for the program. I think they're really close to setting more records for number 11, and I'm glad to see him in his final season getting to his shot to move on to Omaha. The one thing that I wasn't sure, did you see where Miami happened to play in the tournament?
No.
So they probably weren't there, were they?
I actually don't know, for real. Matt, I had a note here to count the Big Ten teams in the tournament, and I didn't even write them down. I only remember us in Ohio State. So I didn't even do my own due diligence there.
Okay. I was just checking to see if you saw them do anything relevantly since 1983.
Wait, are you kidding? That's the last baseball success they've had? Because they've had more recent football success. You remember that awesome team, 2001? I have one other thing, though, from the tournament. Louisville, they're, and this is ACC news, Matt. You should have been all over this one. But their closer was controversially ejected with 2 outs in the 9th inning because there was a ball. It looked very much like a strike to me. And I understand it's the College World Series. You're not going to call every close pitch a strike. They already have 2 outs. Calls it a ball. The pitcher's standing there for a second. And you can see on the replay that he mouthed, "That's horrible." And that was it. All he did was say, "That's horrible." It didn't look like he yelled it. It looked like he kind of muttered it. Like, "That's horrible." And then turned around, started walking back to the mound. And while he's walking, once he turns around, the ump comes raging out there, ejects him.
Oh, he put a hell of a show on.
The ump looked like an idiot. And I don't know, okay, you're coaching or you're doing the games for college age kids. Of course they're going to say things. I saw a guy from the Brewers that was arguing calls on Saturday, and he made a spectacle of himself. The ump didn't even flinch. He just pointed to the bench and was like, "Whenever you're ready, you can go back there." But this was, I don't even know how to word it, but the Louisville one, there's no reason to throw a kid out. And due to the NCAA's stupid rules, he's now suspended for 4 games. I don't know if he appealed that. I didn't see anything come up when I tried to research it, because I'm sure the NCAA doesn't want a lot of articles written about this. But you're in, I don't know what grade the kid's in. He could be a senior for all I know. You don't want to take away a program's closer for literally no reason. If he had punched a guy, threw the ball into the crowd, did anything like that could endanger people, get him out of there. But just by saying "that's horrible," it's unreal to me. But you saw it, Matt. Did you think there was anything else there?
The only thing that I could think was that there were other things that were going on during the game, that, like, other comments that were being made that you didn't hear, that triggered that kind of reaction, that it was like finally that last straw. But it could have just been that it was his moment. I mean, to me, that late in the game, where you're in the 9th inning and the game's just about over, I think that's kind of a BS move by that referee to throw him out and then have him subject to a 4-game suspension that definitely hurts them going into the next round of the playoffs. And
I didn't even analyze the box score, but to me, when you're saying about things that happened previously, he's the closer. It most likely didn't even involve him. So he's kind of the scapegoat for no reason, and that makes me feel really bad for them. And I'm not a fan of Louisville by any means, but you're there, and you make it all the way into the college tournament, and then just to have it cut short for you, I definitely feel bad for the guy. And I hope he gets another chance, because it's not fair if an ump has a bad day to remove a guy from 4 games, because if you don't know the format, we played the group stage. So now it's super regionals where it's best of 3 against one other team. So Louisville has 3 games. If that guy's out 4 games, he's done. If Louisville loses 2 of these games, or even if they win 2, he could potentially be out the first 2 in the actual College World Series tournament. It's just weird. But that's all I have for baseball. You have anything else on that, Matt?
No, that was all the stuff I saw. It was definitely exciting, and definitely kind of plays off of some of the stuff that I talked about last year with the girls softball route. And when a team gets hot, they definitely just ride right on out. I saw after that first Michigan game, I was geared up to give you a little bit of grief over Creighton taking the first game earlier. But
that was a collapse. It was a bullpen collapse. Michigan should have won on Sunday, and that should have put it away. I honestly thought they were going to lose last night, but now I don't even know how to read the team. Bullpen issues is never good. They have to go all the way to LA to play UCLA, and they have the number 1 rated pitching staff in the country, so it'll be a tough out. But go ahead.
But as I saw, they came back, and that's a tough round to come back after losing the earlier one to come back and win it, and good for them for doing it.
And that reminds me, they did it playing fundamental ball. So if you want to look for a good play, and I tried to find a replay of it, but I haven't been able to find the actual broadcast view of it. Michigan did a double suicide squeeze when they were up. Man, it was like they were up by like a run or two. So basically a double squeeze is they had guys at second and third, and they start to steal. Like a suicide squeeze is when you have a runner on third and you're stealing home. And then the batter turns and bunts the ball, and he tries to bunt it hard enough so that either the third baseman fields it or the first baseman fields it, and it's far enough away from the plate that he can't throw the runner out at home. So that they're only plays at first base. So you're basically giving up an out to get a run to kind of extend their lead. Well, they went ahead and did it, and Creighton was not even prepared at all. By the time the pitcher threw the ball, the runner at second base was almost at third base already. He rounded third base and started to go home, and the catcher wasn't paying attention. He pointed to like first base, I believe is what he did. And so he wasn't even guarding home plate, so the guy from second went all the way around, and he was basically on home plate by the time the first baseman caught the ball. He had no chance to even turn around and try to get that second runner. So that's the kind of stuff that I saw, and when I saw that happen, I knew, okay, Michigan definitely came to play that they're able to pull that off in a World Series game, because, I mean, that's playoffs. That's a crazy play to even call, because so many things have to go right. You have to get the bunt down. You have to get it far enough away so that the catcher can't field it and tag the runner. You don't want the pitcher to just catch it and flip it back to the catcher. So definitely kudos for that. And it made me feel a lot better going into the Super Regionals. So good luck to all the teams that made it. It should be an exciting round, and we'll probably be circling back around on that next week. We've got some big NFL news, though. And no, I'm not talking about Juju going to prom, which I know a lot of Pirates fans are probably all amped up. And, Matt, you don't even have to be a girl to get him to show up. That was a guy that invited him. So anyone can probably get him to go to prom and hang out. Did you see that video?
I did.
The one with the fuck AB chant?
Yeah. What are you doing?
So if you don't know the story, and this is before I actually get into the NFL topic for the week, but Juju Smith got a message from Smith Schuster. I don't know what he likes to go by. Everyone just calls him Juju. But a high school guy was dumped by his girlfriend right before prom. They didn't even give any information, so I don't know how long ago was he dumped. Was it 6 months ago? Has this been in the works for a while? I don't know. So he invites Juju, who then shows up, which to me was shocking, and I don't even know what would possess a man to want to go to prom when you're like, what? How old is he? He has to be like 24, 23.
22, 23.
So he shows up at prom. Everyone's dancing, having a good time, and they're on the dance floor, and all the students start doing a fuck AB chant, which references Antonio Brown and the beef he has with Juju. And it's almost like everything is kind of coming full circle. Everything that Steelers fans complained about with Antonio Brown, this is the kind of stuff that he would have pulled. So what are your thoughts, Coach?
I don't like it. I think when Brown left and was putting all the stuff, Juju was doing the right stuff. Just saying, he just was trying to learn from AB. He had respect for him, was taking the high road. I like that. But there was no need to post that stuff. Whether it happened or it didn't happen, it didn't have to get out for the rest of the world to find out.
I don't even know if he posted it, though. I think when you put yourself in that situation, anything goes. All of those kids have phones. It was going to be recorded. It was going to get out. You know that there's some slimy media journalist guy that was probably at the prom covering it, knowing that he was going to be there. It was going to get out. So it comes down to, you just got to make the decision. Do I go to prom? No. No, I don't think any of these celebrities should be going to prom. It's weird. But that's just me. I would never in a million years, even if you were a high school kid, would you have thought, like, I'll invite this, like, 30-year-old celebrity? Like, no. 20-something-year-old football player? Like, don't you have anyone else that you can go with? I guess maybe everyone else had dates or whatever. Maybe. I don't know. Weird situation. Would you have invited a football player, Matt?
Nah.
Charlie Ward, you wouldn't have called him up?
He was too busy playing for the Knicks.
You're just too busy playing with the Steelers, basically.
Now the question is, did he bring Pizza Hut with him? Did he bring Pizza Hut for all the prom goers?
I don't know. Matt, I don't know what, but they had like matching tuxes, which made me think that it was like a funny scam. But I mean, with his money, who knows? Maybe he could get that rigged up in a day or two. It's probably a stock thing. I would imagine everyone wears the same exact thing to prom. It's not like every kid gets a unique outfit. But let's get into the real thing. Godell, the commish, for now, he came out and he said that he doesn't think that the NFL needs 4 preseason games. And that, my mind is blown. Because who would have ever thought that you don't need 4 preseason games? Why are they playing these games? I don't even know if they need 1, let alone 4. I know we've argued about this before. College game doesn't have preseason games, and they even have less practices, less experience because you have a lot of new freshmen coming in. And guess what? That first weekend of games is usually pretty awesome. So you're coming in. Let's say, for example, the way 4 weeks of preseason is, first week, maybe Ben Roethlisberger doesn't play at all. Second week, he might play 1 series. Week 2 or week 3, what's he get? Like a series or 2. And then the 4th week, he might get the whole first quarter. Potentially, if you're a younger quarterback, you might get the first half. But that's it. So if you add all of those up, your starters aren't seeing even a full game. Unless they are like trying to break into a new system or something like that. But in the NFL, for your high-profile guys, that's pretty rare for them to even play enough snaps in the preseason to equal 1 game. Then what is the game for? It is so the NFL guys can get film and actual evaluation tape on their draft picks. Why in the world should the fans pay for that? Because the preseason games, we've talked about it. I know Jeff on Spaces or Laces last year, if you go back and look at some of our old, basically, bonus episodes for the show, he had Steelers season tickets. They make you pay for the preseason games, and then you can't even get rid of them. You can't sell them because no one wants to go watch a 4th-round pickup that's been in the league for 38 years as quarterback come out and try to work with some rookies. They just don't want to do it. So, Coach, what do you think? Should they cut them into how many games?
I think cutting them can help in some aspects because I think you want to see, from the evaluation standpoint, of guys that fill out your roster. If you're a team that keeps 5 running backs on the depth chart, what's the competition between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5? You know, it's tough to get that look in practice. You're going to see more evaluating game film. And when you don't have a developmental league, or I should say a successful developmental league, it definitely hurts the NFL by having where you're seeing a lot of the issues of recycling players, recycling coaches, and just plug and play stuff. Part of the reason that you're seeing that is because there's not enough time to develop talent. So some of those preseason games can help in trying to develop some of the talent, those younger players, that you get a look of, are they going to be someone that you can keep on the roster? And to me, watching the old Hard Knocks episodes, it's interesting to watch some of the previous years and then seeing some of those guys that they highlight early on that you're like, you don't really know who they are. Fast forward 2 or 3 seasons, and they're guys that are in the league. They've made it to other teams. So I think like there is a legitimate spot for those guys to do that. but they have to have a chance to show what they can do. When you're at practice and you only have a limited number of reps, there are some guys that are going to get lost in the shuffle that may not be out on the field.
But Matt, you have a situation now where players aren't even showing up. Mandatory guys. There are two guys, I don't want to say it's not for the Browns. I know Duke Johnson's sitting out right now.
He is, and OBJ is.
Yeah, people aren't showing up. And there's another team that has two players that are sitting out, but I can't remember who I read about. They're defensive guys. And they're sitting out mandatory because they didn't like their contract. And it's like, why, oh why would you sign these guys if you don't know what you're going to get? And then they know that they can come in at preseason, play a few games, and then they're going to get played anyway. If you get rid of the preseason games, maybe those guys go to practice, and then you're not splitting so many reps later in the year. I don't know. Or have one.
I think you cut that, and then you cut more, and then you cut more, and you cut more, and you keep peeling it back. Is the way that it's going to go. It's not like all of a sudden I don't have to play these preseason games and I'm going to show up. The motivation for them to get paid is still there, whether it's week 1 or it's preseason week 1. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. You're still going to try to get paid, but I would say that it comes down to they want to really push this 18th regular season game. And to me, why? Why do you need one more game? Could the Steelers have made the playoffs next year or last year if they had one more game? Possibly. Would it have changed the outcome? No, because the locker room was a mess. What is realistically going to change if you go ahead and add that game? And I'll tell you, nothing. The same teams are most likely going to be in the playoffs. It's rare for a wild card team to win the Super Bowl. And going from that, what are you going to do? You're not expanding really the playoffs. You're just giving one more meaningless game. You realize that the preseason, they're not paying for these teams. People aren't showing up. They're not buying the concessions anymore. So the NFL figures by adding one more regular season game, that's one more game they can get money for from the TV contracts because TV doesn't want to pay for these preseason games. No one watches past the first 5 snaps. You watch Ben Roethlisberger go out there, hand the ball 3 times, make a throw, and then they bring out the punt team, you turn it off because you know he's done for the week. Like, why even watch that? So I would rather see them do some type of off the books charity scrimmage where they try to go to an actual I don't even know. They go to a smaller type thing and do a scrimmage for them as the first week. Cause Pittsburgh does all their training camp stuff at St. Vincent's, but you can go to different places, maybe do an off the schedule, not televised preseason scrimmage with one of the other teams because they've been doing that kind of. You see the teams meet up in training camp to scrimmage against each other. So why not just make that the official first week? And then I honestly think you can do one preseason kickoff game where it's kind of an exhibition and do it with a cross division rival or something. Even if you were doing it the same teams every year, I think that would be fine because I think what's happening is the NFL is using it as kind of an excuse to get teams that never see each other to play. But there's really no reason for that because who cares? That game does not matter. But I don't know. Those are just some random thoughts I had. Anything else you have on the preseason stuff, Matt?
Not too much. I think more football is good football. And regardless of whichever way they do it, as long as it's not taking away from the games that we're going to be able to see, that's all I care about. So if it's preseason, great. If they turn up and they make them regular season, great. To me, the issue is with all of this that it boils down to is it's both players and owners not honoring their contracts. Because if you sign a multi-year deal, like with Le'Veon Bell, he signs his deal with the Jets, then you should be showing up for everything. It's like for you going to a new job and then just be like, no, I'm not going to show up right now. Like, they're paying you to be at work. Like, be there. Do the stuff that every job has stuff that goes along with it that you're not paid to go to, but it's just part of just being a good person, being a good worker, that you kind of be the company man. Do the right things. And I think when it starts with that, it builds that mindset of, well, if I don't have to go to the voluntary stuff, then maybe I don't have to go to the mandatory stuff, that then I just come and go as I please. And then you have owners that are trying to snake, and it's not just a player issue, it's owners that are taking it a step and trying to get around contracts and doing shady things with player contracts to either not pay them or not incentivize them or do whatever it is on their side. So both of them are doing things negatively towards each other that's creating this problem.
And you're right. What are you going to do? At a certain point, you either have to make a name for yourself once you have that name. If you just don't show up, like, you're only hurting yourself. Do you really think he's going to get another big contract if this one falls through? Like, no. What is the point of not showing up? At some point, you have to be an NFL football player, and he's not doing it. It's almost like the opposite. You see Brown, sure, he had his shenanigans, but at least he's been showing up, trying to help the Raiders get into a position to win. And so, I don't know. The preseason stuff doesn't bother me for the vets. We've argued about this before on the show. Just don't show up. As long as you're in shape, the preseason stuff does not matter at all. Just go to the first week. And you could even lose like the first couple weeks of the NFL season and still make the playoffs. If you add one more game, that's just going to make the early weeks even more meaningless. So they're really kind of hurting their own thing. Kind of pivoting, but not really. The Big Ten has hired Kevin Warren as the new commissioner to replace Jim Delaney next year when he retires. And Kevin Warren was with the Minnesota Vikings. And I will say, as a Big Ten guy, I'm kind of underwhelmed by this hire because I know a lot of NFL people have been high on him, and there were rumors that he might even be in line to be the next commissioner for the NFL. But I was trying to read on what his highlights were that he did, and I only saw like a 2 blurb like highlight where he helped finance the new Minnesota stadium. And sure, Minnesota was potentially going to leave, but maybe he was behind that too. I don't know. They didn't give me a lot of details. I don't know what that meant. He strong-armed Minnesota into paying for that stadium. And then he brought the Super Bowl there to Minnesota. Like, ooh, wow. They only really have a couple cities to choose from. You just strong-armed them by threatening to have the Minnesota Vikings move. And those are your 2 highlights? Nothing else? They said he played basketball at Penn. He didn't even graduate there. He went there for 1 year, played basketball, and then transferred. So they had that as like his highlight. He didn't even have a degree from Penn. Then he went to Grand Valley State and was in Arizona State. So not really any ties to the Midwest until he got to like the NFL. I guess he went to Notre Dame for his law degree, which is another knock on him. Why do we want a Notre Dame guy leading the Big Ten? But we'll see. Because I'm not high on that. The Big Ten just paid out the largest contract, like money-wise, of all time to all of their members. So you're bringing in a guy that's supposed to help build that, but yet he doesn't really have any experience. I could see the NFL, I think for the NFL commissioner, anyone can be commissioner that has like ties to the league as long as they're ready to just take a beating. Because the fans are going to hate that guy no matter what. Is he really doing like behind the scenes stuff? No, he's kind of just like a negotiator between owners. In college programs, it's much different. There's a lot of bureaucracies. So we'll see if it pays off. But I want to see some actual results and an owner. I don't want to see a guy like the Pac-12 has where it's falling apart and he doesn't know what he's doing. Or even whenever the Big 12, I don't know if Bowlesby was like their commissioner or what he was, but when they were starting to fall apart and all those teams were leaving, they didn't have a strong commissioner to keep the league together. And that's what the Big Ten needs. They need a guy to jump up and start to market them better. And I don't see how an NFL guy helps with that. Because the NFL is more conservative. Let's just keep doing the old thing. The Big Ten has to get a guy that has fire, like the SEC guy that started all that marketing stuff with like the SEC speed, and we win championships here. Like that kind of stuff has grown on the recruits so much that it is still a thing. Because, Matt, you're telling me that Florida State doesn't have the same athletes and same speed that SEC schools do? It's the same exact state. You know damn well they do. They got the same exact guys. So why does everyone think SEC speed? Because of the marketing from that old commissioner, was it Mike Silva or whatever, back in like the 2000s when they did that ESPN deal. They put together all those SEC commercials, and now that's the thing. That's what the Big Ten needs to take that next step. I don't think this guy gets it done. So I don't know if you care about that, Matt, or have any other comments, but that was basically the big college news other than baseball that I saw this week.
No, don't really have a hand in it. I know that, I mean, it is a big deal, but there's also a bit of politicking in all of that stuff too, that it's easier for me just to stay out.
Yeah, we'll get into some of the politicking stuff right now, though. The IAAF, and this is a big thing. I wasn't going to cover it because we really don't talk track and things like this, but it's been happening so much that I just have to comment on it, Matt. I don't know if you want to, but the IAAF, which is like the Committee on Track and Field, has suspended testosterone rules, which means that girls that were potentially boys genetically no longer have to take testosterone suppression medicine anymore. So you're basically having guys go into the Olympics saying that they're women and winning the race. And it's happening all over. I had another article here. And I guess it stems from a good place because the reason behind the ruling was an African runner that was born a man but unfortunately had something happen where genetically they didn't have it. So when they went for the initial tests, it looks like basically she looks like a woman. So she's been running as a woman forever. It wasn't until later when they did the actual genetic testing that they found out that she was a man. That's one case. But then you also have guys like, where is it? In the NCAA, Craig Telfer, who ran on the men's side in track in college, finished in 390th is what it says.
Almost 400.
Almost 400. Still a man, decided that he wanted to compete with women, changed his name to Cece Telfer, and basically still a biological man, now is ranked the #1 track athlete in college. And to me, that's just outrageous. So if you want to have a level playing field, you have to level it out, because the reason I bring this into the show is, Matt, the only scenario that I can see happening is if they start to let this happen with women's sports, steroids are going to become legal. It's the only course of action, because regular women are going to push back and say, hey, if they're allowed to have basically natural steroids, then we're going to start taking steroids and you can't say anything about it. And once that starts happening, the floodgates will happen and it will be allowed by men. So I don't know what they're going to do to get this stuff under control, but I fear that all the stuff that happened in Major League Baseball, all the fair sport type stuff like that, it's really being, I don't want to say attacked, but it's really being refocused on in track and field. And once they make that call for track and field, I would assume that that's going to apply for the entire Olympics. So you're going to have a brand new Olympics rules, and once that hits the Olympics, then that's going to go ahead and trickle down. It's going to hit the World Cup of soccer because they want to have basically the same rules as the Olympics. Then it's going to hit other major sports, the World Cup of Basketball, whatever they're calling that now, the FIBA or whatever, that it's going to hit international hockey, which then in turn will hit the NHL, the NBA, all those other sports, MLS, and then it's only a matter of time because you have NFL players right now that are fighting against the ban on marijuana, saying that if marijuana is legal in their state, why aren't they allowed to use that as a pain reliever in the NFL? And it's a good question because it's not performance enhancing. So why not? So there's a lot of stuff right now that's being rolled on that I think in 5 years is going to change the face of sports. So I just wanted to bring that in so people are aware because I haven't seen a lot of media coverage on it. So if you want to look it up, I'll put out the appropriate links on our Twitter. You can find it on Southbound Sports on Twitter. You just go to southboundsports.com and check out the show notes. I'll try to put, I know our social media is linked on there, but I'll try to put some links in this week's episode just because it's a heavy hitting one. And Matt, I'll give you some chance now if you want to talk to it or not. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this story, it's the reason that it's not gaining as much traction as you would think is because there really isn't a whole lot they can do. If you're identifying as a woman or you're identifying as a man, then you're protected under all of those laws and you have all of those rights in place. Does it give a biological man who's now choosing to identify as a woman and compete in women's sports an advantage? Absolutely. But as far as the rights, if they choose to identify that way, there's nothing that really can be done. I think when you're talking about changing sports, eventually what I could see happening is instead of it being like using the World Cup, for example, I could see it evolving to where it's no longer the men's World Cup, the women's World Cup. It just becomes one tournament that is played twice a year. And you'll see just mixed teams where both men and women are vying for those spots for their countries. And that could end up being the route that you see where they have X number of identified men, X number of identified women that fill those roster spots. And whether teams get around it by messing with those is another issue in itself. You know, you look at along those similar lines, I saw there was a report that a biological man changed genders said he was identifying as a woman, set this deadlift record, and then changed back, like just to prove a point to the way that the laws are changing. That he could identify as a woman, set this record, had a world record for women's deadlift, and then said, "All right, I'm back to being a man now." And it was a bizarre story.
I mean, there's more to it, but like you said, I could see them combining them. I don't think that they would identify certain roster spots by you have to have so many women or men. That's kind of like an intramurals type rule, but I just don't see how they would do that on the professional level. I think it's basically going to kill Title IX. So I could see that because I think if you did see those, you would see very, very limited amount of women on these men's soccer teams, using soccer as an example. But Matt, if you think that they did that, would the United States then be able to claim World Cup champions for all their women's trophies?
They potentially could.
I mean, Matt, Alabama claims all their championships pre-bowl game. Why not? Can't lose if you're already claiming national champs.
I like the way you're looking there. Keep that winner mindset.
I mean, that's just a lighthearted joke, but in reality, that could very well happen where you get a chance. I mean, you see it in hockey. They're already trying to get extra funding from the NHL for the women's professional league. What if the NHL just said, hey, why don't the women just come try out for the regular men's teams? And then you're sitting there, and what's going to be the argument? You're giving a fair chance. Is it going to help all the women? No. But I honestly don't know where they can go with this. And I just think that if you're a sports fan, get it on your radar, especially if you watch the Olympics even casually, because it's going to change the whole face of the game. And if you have kids, I mean, if you have a daughter out there, just think, because this could take away scholarships potentially and hurt other people all around. So there's not really any, good way for this to be handled right now, and in terms of competitive fairness, I guess. But let's get into the NBA Finals. Matt, you got some flack on Twitter for picking the Raptors in 5, and they go out and win the first game. They very could have well won the second game if they hit some shots down the stretch. I thought they had a good shot to win it.
I did too.
And so now you're looking at a tied series. I think they play tomorrow. What are your thoughts going in? Do you think the Raptors still have a chance?
I think they have a very small chance, but like I said with my pick, I think they have, if they're going to win it, they got to close the door fast, because Golden State's starting to get more of their players back that were injured, and the longer that the series drags out, the more the healthier those guys are going to get, and the less likely they're going to have of closing them out. To me, the thing that I'm finding really annoying with this series is, for the love of Christ, will someone please get Drake off the court? I'm sick of every 2 minutes they're like panning to Drake and like seeing what he's doing. It's like we're not dealing with LeBron, but now we're dealing with Drake and his curse continuing.
Matt, I will say this, that I know who Drake is. I guess he was on Disney or something. Like, I don't know any of his backstory, and I only know him from sports, where he seems to just like whatever team's winning, but I guess he's from Canada, so he's really pulling for Toronto. I could be wrong on that.
Yes.
But I did see that he was on the court, and the NBA, if they were actually worried about competitiveness and fairness, why is he on the court?
Yes.
They should have ejected him a long time ago, but the league is so corrupted now that they just want the extra exposure because they're trying to appeal to like very young kids. But again, like, I don't know one person that has ever told me, hey, you should check out this Drake song. That has never happened to me once in my life. I think he's a musician, right?
Yes.
Has anyone ever come up to you and said, hey, Matt, check out this Drake song?
All the time.
No, you're lying. I know you're lying. You never get that. So
I get it all the time. I'm hip to the street.
I mean, I get all kind of stuff, but never Drake. And I only know him because of SportsCenter. And I think it's because he is safe. They put him on there because if I'm right, and he was on Disney Channel, which I don't know. Maybe he wasn't. But I think that that's where he's from. I could be wrong. Maybe Nickelodeon. But they get a safe guy, and they're using it to promote the kids that are from the social media generation. And let's be honest, haven't been watching basketball. How many articles are there about the NBA ratings going down? 0. You know how many about all the other sports on how their ratings are going down? Where are the NBA articles? Because it's so easy for TV guys to film basketball. It's not cold and fast like in a hockey arena. It's slow and very easy for them to film basketball games. And they're inside in the middle of winter. It's basically free programming for them. The schools already have the camera stuff set up. So there's no way they're going to be hard on college basketball and the NBA. So it is what it is. Like, what am I going to do? Have to sit there and watch them talk about some guy that I don't know, why he's important? Yes, Matt. If you're going to watch basketball, that is exactly what you get. So I hope you're happy with it.
Embiid should have closed them out.
I know.
In the process.
I know. What would you thought? This could be the Sixers right now, tied 1-1 in the finals.
No, they would have been up 2-0 in the finals had they have been there.
Had they have been there. I mean, Kawhi, I feel bad for him because I saw that he had to sue Nike for a tracing of his hand that he did for one of his designs. And he's been using it with like his charity and stuff. And Nike went ahead and filed a copyright for it. I don't know if it was recently, but he started an injunction to try to get that back. So I hope he wins, and I hope he wins on the court. So good luck, because I think that that's the kind of guy that the NBA needs leading the front and center. A guy that's quiet. He's won. I mean, could you imagine the Spurs trade him and he starts to lead this team to a championship. Meanwhile, Durant left to go to Golden State, like the most stacked team. I mean, you can't write this. LeBron barely got a championship with the Cavs. He barely had it with two teams. So then you have Kawhi potentially on the cusp of doing that right now. So I hope it happens. Anything else for the NBA? I don't think I have anything else.
No.
Just had a quick note on the Stanley Cup final. The Blues came back and tied it last night, tied 2-2. I honestly thought after Saturday, when they were getting destroyed, that it was over. Because the Bruins have the better goalie, and they have the more talented roster. And in the NHL, I know I always talk about how matchups are important, but a lot of times in a 7-game series, those are the deciding factors. Who has the better goalie? And sometimes the goalie can just carry your team. Just like if you have a guy that can control the puck, maybe kill some time and put up shots, that guy can get it done for you. But, man, the Blues are not giving up. So once again, you're looking at an exciting series. I hope it goes to 7. I'm still pulling for the Blues, but we'll see what happens. I don't know why. Not even a big fan of St. Louis, so I guess it doesn't matter to me if Boston wins. But Boston winning all the sports really takes a shine off my man Tom Brady. So I'd rather just him be the only person that's a champion in that city. And so that's why I'm against the Bruins. Any thoughts on the NHL, Matt?
No, just keep going, St. Louis. Finish them off.
All right, let's get into the final bell. You got anything for the final bell today, Matt?
No, I don't. I was going to just pull for St. Louis to try to knock the Bruins off was going to be my final bell.
Yeah, I honestly don't really have anything. I've been getting a lot of feedback, so just if you watch the show, feel free to email us at contact@southboundsports.com. We've had a lot of stuff going in there. I've still been working on improving the website, so if you have any feedback, I've had some people reach out to me on some different podcast platforms. So if you listen, and I know I should do this at the top of the episode in case you closed out early, but if you listen to the show and you can't find like a feature or a title's not correct on your podcast platform, please let me know because I really appreciate that. I got one and I made the fix already. So we're going to go ahead and try to be on any platform that you want to listen to. Right now we're on iTunes. I usually check on Stitcher. I know we only get a handful of downloads there. But I also do like the Google Play Store and some of the other ones. TuneIn Radio, I think we're on Spotify now. So if you use a different platform, please let me know because I'd like to support as many as I can. But other than that, you can check out the site, southboundsports.com. Find our social media there. Make sure you like us. And thanks for listening. We will see you next week.